Yeah.
Trying to sell it to me, so I'm like, damn, I don't know what I want.
Good to see you, bro.
He's getting big.
Hey. And if there's issues, luckily, because it can take you 3 years to find one tenant. Good to see you, bro. Appreciate you coming out, brother. So we're at my new 60,000 square foot warehouse that we just purchased for $1.8 million. Needs about $1.5 million of renovation. We'll be all in for about $3.3 million, but it'll be worth, hopefully, when it's all said and done, about $6.5 million. That's over $3 million in equity. So we're gonna walk you through. I actually have a bunch of people coming on site today to walk through with us. You're gonna be along for the ride. But the best part about this is that we're able to structure this entire deal using all other people's money. So I'm gonna break down the scope of the deal, the financing of the deal, and the exit strategy on the deal. So come along for the ride. The question was, am I GCing this? Am I acting as the general contractor here? When I first started the business, my first deal, I hired a general contractor, and then I started GCing it myself. If this is, 8-9 years ago. If you GC it yourself, it means that you hire every subcontractor, which it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. And you kind of got to know what you're doing a little bit to make sure you're scheduling the right people. So I did that for a few years, and then since then, for the last probably 5 years, I've hired a general contractor to do most of my projects. This one, so far, I'm GCing myself. It's close to a $2 million renovation. I plan on holding this for the rest of my life. This is a legacy asset to me. So I want it done the right way. And there was a lot of variables on here. We had $250,000 in structural issues, which I'll break down. We had tenant issues, we had sewer line issues, water line issues, gas line issues. It's just been a lot. So typically it's 50 to 60 people on site, 10 to 12 trades every single day. So it's a lot. So yes, I've been GCing it. It's the biggest project I've ever done, but it's fun. I live in Florida. I grew up here. I live in Florida. I leave on Friday. So I'm trying to get everything squeezed in before I take off out of here. So Esty, he's been helping me with a lot of subs, a lot of translation, Spanish. I'm learning a lot. So he'll probably help me out when I leave to head back to Florida. But yeah. So context on this deal, normal house flip, you make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, give or take, somewhere around there. If you hit a home run, you're making $100,000 in profit, right? And that's what I've been doing my entire career. This deal, numbers are very different in a positive way. But that gray building right there, the gray one, I started posting on social media that I was looking to buy more warehouse spaces. And somebody messaged me and said, hey, I got this warehouse deal. So I actually went into contract to buy that building right there. And I flew in to look at it during my inspection period. And I walked in and it just didn't make sense. So we backed out of that deal after the inspection. And as I was driving home, right on this street, I looked down this aisle and I was like, this looks like a crappy piece of crap. The blacktop was destroyed, there was holes in the roof, there was broken windows, the buildings weren't all painted the same. And as I drove by, I was like, I'm gonna buy that building. And I went home and I skip traced it, right? It's called driving for dollars. You drive an area, you see a dilapidated house, you pick up the phone and start calling them. From that day to the day I bought it was about 20 months and about 100, 150 phone calls to be able to get people on board. So in real estate, we get paid for solving problems, right? If everything was easy, there's no money to be made. So you solve a problem, you make money. And a little bit of context on that 20-month process, called a whole bunch, every number I could find, it was probably like 15 phone numbers. Somebody ended up calling me back, and because I asked for the gentleman's name on the auditor, and I didn't say, hey, I'm interested in buying your house, because you're probably not going to get a call back at that point. I said, hey, I'm with the city. I have a question about your property on 572 South Nelson Road. Creates curiosity. And they called me back. They're like, hey, you called me about Nelson Road. I was like, yeah, actually, I was curious if you had any interest in selling the property. And she was like, nope. I was like, there's no price that would interest you. And she was like, nah, the cash flow, you got to listen, the cash flow, it just doesn't make sense to sell. I was like, so no price. She was like, no, and don't call me again. I was like, damn, all right. But I heard the cash flow words. So I broke it down and I drove here and I found a tenant and I was like, how much do y'all pay in rent? Acting like I was trying to find a place for myself. And they were like, about $1,500 a month. $1,000 to $1,500 is what everybody pays. So I did the math. I was like, all right, so they're bringing in $17,000 to $20,000 a month in total cash flow. but then they got to pay insurance, they got to pay taxes, they got to pay expenses. So they were netting like $10,000 a month. I was like, all right, cool. So I'd worked the numbers to find a way where if they seller financed me the asset, I could pay them $10,000 a month because they would be acting as my bank. So then I called them like 50 more times, nobody answered. I called their cousins, sons, aunts, daughters, sisters, everybody. And I called the brother's son, and the brother answered. And he's like, what do you want? I was like, listen, I've talked to your sister. She said she wouldn't sell. He was like, really? Like, she wants to sell. Let me call you back. He didn't call me back. So I called like another 20 times. Finally, I got him on the phone. I was like, listen, just give me 60 seconds. I just want to make you an offer. I was like, I'll give you $500,000 today. I'll pay you 15 grand a month, and I'll give you another 1.5 on the back end in 3, 5, 7 years from now, whenever you want it. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know you were talking about those numbers. And that's what got the ball rolling and got everybody on the phone to finally come to a conclusion on the deal. So like, it's a process getting deals done. And this is on a big building. It's the same process on a single family house, right? So just a little bit of context on the process. But on this deal, we negotiated a purchase price. It was like $1.95 million for the purchase. And I had budgeted like $1.1 million on the renovation. After we got the property inspected, it had about $250,000 in structural foundation issues. So we got a price reduction to $1.8 million. So they gave us $150,000 off. I got a contractor to come out and look at the property. I got a structural engineer to come out and look at the property, write a report. I gave that report to a contractor. Contractor gave me an estimate. I sent those documents to the seller and I said, hey, it's a $250,000 difference. I need $250,000 off. They're like, hey, we won't give you $250, but we'll give you $150. I was like, cool, let's do it. So we bought it for 1.8. Budget was 1.4. We'll probably be closer to like 1.5, 1.6 when it's all said and done as we've gotten into it. The planned budget was 1.8 purchase, 1.4 rehab. It was $3.2 million in total. And the way we funded this deal, a mixture of banks and private money lenders. So I had a bank to fund $2.4 million. It was like 70% of cost. And then I got a private money lender to fund $1 million in second in gap. So remember, my all-in was 3.2, but I raised 3.4. So I got 2.4 from the bank and $1 million from a private money lender. So at closing, I got like $180,000 in my account, because what happens when you deal with banks, one, you got to pay monthly interest payments, and two, you have to front the rehab to then get reimbursed on a draw for the construction. So if I funded it perfectly, I would then have to come out of pocket to pay the mortgage, and I would then have to come out of pocket to front, $100,000 in construction to then get reimbursed for it. But instead, I over borrowed, and I got $200K on the purchase to fund all those things as the bank drew out the construction loan. So that was kind of the financing structure on it. I have a 2.5-year interest only with my private money lender. It accrues for the first year, so there's no monthly interest payments. It accrues for a year, and then on month 13, I start making monthly interest payments. I have a 3-year interest only with my bank that then terms out for 25 years. So the plan is to refinance once it's stabilized. I think it'll be worth about $6.5 million. I'll be in for about 3.2. So I'll pull out 65% on the back end. I'll put $1 million in my pocket, 100% tax-free. Refinance proceeds are non-taxable, and it'll net about $250,000 a year in true net profit after all expenses on one deal. And to put that in context, I own 180-ish rental properties, and those barely net $20,000 a month. This one deal will make more money monthly than 180 rental properties, just to put into context the difference of the two. So a lot of questions I get asked, do you wish you went bigger sooner? Absolutely. I've been doing this for a decade. This wouldn't be my first big deal. This could be my 20th big deal, right? So yeah, I wish I would have done sooner. Start out, do a couple deals, whatever it is, but be open to the bigger opportunities. Because I can drive all around Old Town East and tell you every single deal I passed on, warehouse buildings, apartment complexes, commercial retail centers that I passed on because I was focused on single family because I didn't know any better, right? It's the same thing. It's the same inspection process. It's the same raising money process. It's the same contracting process. Yes, there's more, but it's the same process. It's one refinance. I do everything one time on this deal instead of 180 times like I've done on the other deals, right? So I'm not saying start here, but if you get this phone call, have enough wherewithal to pick up the phone and call anybody or me, be like, yo, I got this deal, let's do something with it, right? I wish I would have done that, and I would have made a lot more money over the last 10 years. So that's a little bit of context on this deal. We'll do some questions, I'll show you around a little bit, and then we'll just do Q&A about all things real estate and some networking. So in a regular like single family house, if you get $1,500 a month in rent, they pay you $1,500, and then you pay the taxes and the insurance and the grass cutting and whatever else, the toilets and the light fixtures, and those are all your expenses, right? So like you're making $1,500, but you don't really know what like the net profit's actually going to be until the end of the year once you figure out how much money you're going to spend. The thing I like about this is you charge back all those expenses to the tenant. So how that plays out is like we have $10 base rent, and then here it's roughly $2.20 in CAMs. So like if we got $40,000 a month or a year in taxes, we got $40,000 a year in insurance, we've got snow plow removal, we've got grass cutting, paying my company a 4% management fee, and like maybe one or two other things. That total expense yearly is about $150,000 a year in operating expenses, and then you divide that by the square feet. So the tenants are actually paying all those expenses, and they're responsible for their own units. So if toilets break, they got to replace it. If light fixtures break, they got to replace it. Garage doors break, they got to replace it. Windows break, they got to replace it. They want more outlets, they got to do it. They want a hose bib, they got to do it. So the only thing here I'm responsible for is the roof and the exterior walls. So we just put new roofs on, and they're concrete block exterior walls. So like there's really not that much expenses that I'm going to incur. So like we have our base rent, they're paying all of our operational expenses, and the day-to-day maintenance is the tenant's responsibility. So that's why I like these properties, because like they're called triple net leases because you essentially know what your net profit is because the tenant's responsible for everything else. So this building is all the buildings are going to rent for roughly $1 a square foot because you got the $10 base plus the $2 CAMs is about $12 a year, divided by 12 is about $1 a month. So that's how we're kind of leasing them out. We have a couple leases out. We think we're going to have our first signed lease tonight. You know, the thing when you like buy properties, you have a spreadsheet that has a whole bunch of numbers on it that tells you that this was a good deal, right? But then you actually got to do the deal and see if those numbers are right. So like, you know, the purchase price, the variables are the rehab expenses, the hold time, the sales price, the rental number, and you got to wait till all those things come in until you can see if it's actually a good deal or not. So like we need to get the leases signed because then we have like proof of concept. This thing's going to come full circle because what we projected in income, people are agreeing with us because they're willing to pay that. Like we could say, hey, it's $12, it's $1 a month, but they might be like, hey, I'll pay you 50 cents a month. And then this deal would be a horrible deal, right? The numbers I'm telling you on are if our assumptions are correct, then those are how the numbers will play out. So I think we're going to get a signed lease tonight, and then like that's proof of concept, and I'm excited at that point. But you got to see things come full circle to make sure you get it done. And again, the hold time. You know, I'm telling you, I'm burning $1,200 a day. If it takes me if it takes me 13 months instead of 12 months, I'm another $40,000 in the negative just because I was a month behind on a timeline. So you got to make sure you budget your timeline correctly as well. So in here, we're spraying the ceilings black, painting the walls, putting up like 90 lights in here because this place is huge. And then we're going to finish the office. It's got 2 half bathrooms, paint it, put flooring in, and call it a day. So offices are heated and cooled. Warehouse space is only heated. And if somebody wants to put an AC in, again, that's their expense, that's their problem. But if they do and leave in 5 years, the AC stays and I get to keep it. That's the beautiful thing about commercial. So that's a little bit of context about this unit. We'll roll to another one, but any questions on this so far? Yeah, fantastic question. So like, again, single family or commercial, when you buy a property and it's occupied, the terms of the lease is the only thing that matters. If somebody has a signed lease for 10 years at $1 per month, guess what? They're going to be in that unit for 10 years at $1 per month, and there's nothing you can do about it. So very vividly read the leases, because if they have an option to buy the property for $1, guess what? They have an option to buy the property for $1. So we bought this property, it was 3rd generation, and majority of them had no leases. Someone can say they have no lease, but then there's actually a lease in place, right? So in that scenario, on a deal like this, we had them sign what's called an estoppel agreement, which is the tenant and the owner saying, hey, yes, I am paying $1,000 a month. I am on a month-to-month lease, and I'm paid through, the first. So everybody was in agreement. Everybody was on a month-to-month lease. So when we bought the property, so in context, if we rent this for what we think we're going to rent it for, we'll bring in about $60,000 a month in gross revenue. It was bringing in about $13,000 a month in gross revenue. So there was one unit, somebody was paying $600 a month. This unit, they were paying $1,000 a month, and it should be $6,600 a month. So when we bought it, we're putting, $1.5 million, $2 million into the rehab. So we called all the tenants, and they were aware because we had inspections. They knew something was going on. But we called all the tenants, was like, hey, here's the issue. Like, here's the plan. The property's obviously in extreme disrepair. The owners did nothing to it. There's the roofs are leaking. There's potholes everywhere. Sewers don't even work. You don't even have water to some of the buildings. So like the new ownership bought the property and they're planning on bringing it up to the market, investing multiple 7 figures to get it to the market. Along with that, market rate property needs market rate rent. So we would love for you to stay. You've been here for a long time. We are going to lease it for X, so $10 a foot, but we'll lease it to you for $9 a foot for you staying here. We'd love for you to stay, but think about it. Give us a call next week. Let us know where you're at. So we made all those calls, and then everybody said, we're delusional. We're never going to get that rent. You guys are. And they all ended up leaving. Some left peacefully, some not so peacefully. But again, that's part of this business. So they were on month to month, and they were paying like 1/5 of market rate rent.
So when you say you found this driving for dollars, it's like legit. You got in the whip like.
I was in contract for the building next door. I flew in to see it. I walked it. Didn't make sense. I was driving home, and I literally the one next door drove past it and cold called him the next day. And 150 calls, and almost 2 years later.
And did you have a vision for this? Like you said, you were like, okay, this could be good for cars. Like area, did you kind of have a vision of what it was, or it's kind of like, I just see opportunity here in general?
This was the only unique building. Everything else is just open warehouse with 1 or 2 office spaces. So I still don't know what the end goal is, but I know finding a perfect world scenario is warehouse that are like 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. Because everybody and their mother that has any sort of business can afford to pay $1,500 to $2,000 a month, right? So that's like the perfect world scenario, because your tenant base is insane. These are just a little bit bigger than perfect, because we're at about 4,000 square feet. So somebody paying $4,000 a month, you got to have a little bit better type of operational of a business. So I knew there was mass opportunity in the smaller units, and we're basically a smaller unit. So I just saw the opportunity with it. Now, if you buy one building and one building is 60,000 square feet, it is a whole different world, because it can take you 3 years to find one tenant. So you got to be able to cash flow negative for 3 years. That's a lot of money, right? So I like this because it was broken up between multiple buildings.
So when you look at future opportunities, do you feel like your appetite has grown for the larger, or would you do more like this?
Absolutely.
Which one? You would do more like this or bigger?
At the point of my career now, I can float cash flow negative, because I've got this building, I've got my other portfolio. So if it takes me a year or 2 to find a tenant, it's not going to bankrupt me. But if I have 1 or 2 assets, that's very risky. I would probably bring in a financial partner that can float that expense for you. But I would I don't know if I'd buy a 100,000 square foot single tenant warehouse. Actually, I would just bring in a partner for it. But I love stuff like this, for sure.
How do you find money lenders to fund your deals?
Private money lenders? It's the short answer is everywhere. But the little bit more context on that, how I kind of started the story about how I found this deal, I called the seller and I said, hey, I'm with the city, I'm calling about your property. I didn't say, hey, I'm calling to see if you had any interest in selling your property at 123 East Main Street, because curiosity is everything, right? If I get a voicemail and they say something I don't care about, I'm not calling them back. If I get a voicemail that sparks curiosity, I'm like, all right, cool, I'm gonna call them back, right? So curiosity is everything. So I literally talk to every single person I come across. If somebody's within 5 feet of me, I'm at least saying hi, at minimum. If I'm sitting next to them at the bar, I'm sparking a conversation with them. If I'm sitting next to them on an airplane, I'm sparking conversation with them. Because like, you never know who's sitting next to you. So I say all that to say, like, out and about, you need to start conversations. They can say, hey, nice car. Hey, did you see the game last week? Hey, that's a great piece of steak. What did you order? I want to order the same thing. So you need to start the conversation, and then typically those conversations lead to, well, what do you do? So you either ask them or they ask you. So if you were to ask me, and we're just out and about, what do? I don't say I'm in real estate. That's really boring, right? I say, yeah, I'm a real estate developer, and I teach other people how to invest their money into real estate. And just like talking to sellers, you're going to need to talk to 100 sellers to get one person to say, okay, I'm interested in selling. Same thing with private money. You're going to say that, and people will be like, oh, cool, and walk on and move on to the next. Sooner or later, someone's going to be like, oh, I always wanted to be in real estate. What do you mean you teach other people how to invest their money into real estate? And now your foot's in the door to be able to have that conversation. So the short answer is telling everybody in the world, talking to everybody in the world you come across, and sparking a conversation with them to have them lead you into private money lender conversations. Like in my career, I've raised, 30 mil, 10 years. I've maybe worked with maybe 30 private money lenders. So it's like, I have thousands of conversations a year, and I have 30 people that lend me money. So you just have to talk to literally everybody. And there's lenders in this room, by the way. There's people in this room that I borrowed money from. So like, you never know who you're sitting next to. My first lender, I met him a year prior to ever actually raising the money, and it was at a networking event. We were just talking, and we exchanged contacts. I was like, hey, I'm new to the business. They're like, hey, I'm new to the business. I was like, oh, that's awesome. What are your plans? They're like, I want to flip houses. I have this retirement account that I rolled to a self-directed IRA, and I'm going to use that money. I did my research on private money, and I knew self-directed is a strategy of using money, of lending money. So I saved it in my phone. A year later, I got my first deal under contract, and I called them. I was like, hey, how's business? They're like, oh, it's tough. I haven't done a deal yet. I was like, yeah, me too, but I actually have this opportunity. And always use the word opportunity. Don't say borrow money. Hey, I have an opportunity for you to lend. I have this opportunity for you. I wanted to see if you had any interest. She was like, yeah, I have interest. Came out to look at the property, lend it on the deal. So it's from a relationship I built a year prior by simply having a conversation with somebody. So I know it's a very loaded question, but it's literally talking to everybody. Social media, I've raised a lot of money from that. Friends, families, cousins, friends, cousins, people at airports, people at restaurants, people at local networking. The cool thing about stuff like this is like typically when you're raising money, you're trying to fight two things. You're trying to fight somebody believing in real estate itself, and then you're trying to encourage them to invest with you. So you're fighting two things, right? If somebody's at something like this, they already believe in real estate. You're already halfway there. Then you just need to get them to believe in you. That's why I love stuff like this. The most money I've ever raised is like local RIAs like this, meetups, free meet, whatever it is. Like meeting other people in real estate settings is how I've raised the most money I've ever raised. So I hired a mentor. I paid him $25,000 on a credit card. I pulled out a new credit card the day before. I had $15K on it. I maxed it out. I had 18 months, no interest. And I thought I was going to get rich overnight. I'm sure like we all do, right? Real estate sounds great. Like, let's go be a millionaire, And so I swiped my credit card. And from that day, it took me 16 months to do my first deal. That's a long time, right? And it wasn't like kind of doing real estate. Like I was making offers and looking at houses every single day for 16 months straight. I was valeting cars, working 50 to 60 hours a week. I was going to college, taking 15 credit hours, which is a full class schedule. And I was doing real estate every single day. So like I legit worked 16, 18-hour days for 16 months in a row. And there was a lot of dark times. Friends would like, hey, can we let's go get dinner, let's go travel, let's go party. And I was like, no, and didn't do anything because I was working, right? And 6, 8 months in, some of my friends were like, bro, you say you're working, but you're still broke and you've been doing it for 6 months. Like, what the is going on here? I'm like, don't worry about it, I'm working, right? And there's a lot of dark times and you feel like, does this really work? Like, you start questioning yourself. I say it all the time, but real estate's not an if game. It's not if real estate works. You're standing in a deal that works. Anybody in here that's done a deal, put your hand up, ever in your entire life. Look around the room. Real estate works. It's not an if game, it's a win game. So as long as you stick to it long enough, I guarantee it, and take the right actions, I guarantee you that it's gonna work. You just gotta stick to it long enough. So your why's gotta be bigger than yourself. So I netted $100,000 in profit on my first deal. I flipped it. My check was $107,000. It was 5 days after my 22nd birthday. My why? I didn't travel. I didn't go out to dinner. I didn't buy a pair of sneakers. I didn't buy a watch. I didn't quit my job, and I didn't drop out of school. And I put $100,000 in my pocket 5 days after my 22nd birthday, because I knew one deal wasn't going to do anything for me. You know, I can blow 100K in a day. You know what I mean? Then I flipped my second deal 90 days later, made $40,000 in profit. So now I had like, all right, cool. I did 2 deals. I have proof of concept. I made $150,000, and then I dropped out and quit and went all in on real estate. So it's like, I knew like $100,000 wasn't going to get me there. So your why's got to be bigger for you to be able to stick to it long enough. And like people that give up, like just don't want it bad enough. Like it's really that simple. Like it works. I promise you it works. You just got to be willing to put enough time into it. Feel me? Cool. What else we got?
What motivates you? What gives you like driving to go? You said so 20 months. Like, what made you like keep going?
I wanted to be rich. Let's call it like my why when I started was like I just wanted money. Like I wanted the nice things and the cars and the vacations. It's changed over time, and now a big why is like my family, right? My wife's here. If you want to put your hand up, she gets she gets nervous. Love you, baby. I got a kid. He's 11 weeks old, and like honestly, like this deal, like I'm torn because like I'm here every day, right? You know, we've been here for the last 2 months. We live in Florida, and like we have a newborn that's with us. So like I'm really torn because like you know this deal will change the trajectory of our last name forever, but at the same time, like I have a newborn. Like I want to be present. I want to be available. I want to see him every day. I want to like spend all my time with him. And it's like, it's tough for me. And like, I had a conversation with my wife a couple months ago when this deal was coming to fruition. I was like, baby, like this is a season that like, you know, you gotta like support me in, you know what I mean? Like this is gonna be tough. It's gonna take a lot of time, energy, and effort. But 6 months from now, we're gonna be in a whole different world, right? So like my family motivates me a lot, and I still wanna make a hell of a lot more money. So to answer that question.
What can I do at 17 years old to lead me in the right direction for real estate?
That's wild. Great question. Congrats to you for being here at 17, bro. That's huge. Is Darius still in here? What age did you do your first deal?
19, 2 days after my 18th birthday.
When did we first meet?
17.
So I spoke at his entrepreneurship class in 2019. He kind of got that spark, and you started learning wholesale right after that? Started learning wholesale. You know what wholesaling is? No. Have you heard about it or no?
I know the word, but I'm not sure what that is.
So I would go on to YouTube tonight, do you know wholesaling real estate, and start watching videos. But essentially, it's like you know you get a seller to sell that agrees to sell you a deal for $100,000. You put it in contract, and then you come to me and you say, hey, I got this deal. Are you interested? And I'm like, yeah, I'll pay $120 for that same deal. And then you assign it to me. You don't ever have to buy the deal. You don't need $100,000. You just assign a piece of paper. That's it. And then you get a $20,000 fee for making that connection. So I would start looking into that, how to wholesale real estate and how to find deals, which is wholesaling. Get on YouTube University, and like I would educate nonstop on that and start doing the actions to find the deals. The direct market. Yeah, you can follow me on YouTube. I got a ton of stuff. But like direct mail, cold calling, etc. Get comfortable on the phone, and like you can lock up a deal now and do a deal now. Like I got another buddy in Texas. He did his first deal at 17. He cleared $100,000 in his first year net. So it's like you're in the right room. I got goosebumps, bro. It's dope you're here. So look into wholesale and real estate, for sure, and connect with Darius.
Yeah, I got you.
Darius, how many calls did you have to do to get your first deal?
Bro, this is wild.
20,000.
Say it again.
20,000.
20,000 phone calls for your first deal.
A lot of bad data though, so.
It's not an if game, it's a win game. And I'm not saying it takes 20,000 phone calls, and I'm not saying it takes 16 months to do your first deal. There's a lot better ways to do it than the things we did, right? But it's not if, it's when.
Would you say you got a certain niche or a certain system when you're approaching every deal, or is everyone different?
Like when I first started, I was only looking to flip houses using other people's money, because that's how I was taught. I didn't know what wholesaling was. I like new rentals. I owned a rental, but like I didn't know the BRRRR, like I didn't know any of those things. So like at the beginning, I was just looking to flip houses using other people's money, and I did that for years. And I passed on a lot of opportunity because that's the only thing I was looking at. Now, when I see opportunity, one, it has to be big enough to say yes. because we have, you know, a bunch of stuff going on. That's one. And then two, like, if it is big enough to say yes, what's the time commitment and like the structure? You know, if it's a single family house you're gonna make 5K on, like, I'm out, right? If it's a deal like this, I'm all the way in. You know what I mean? So now I look at opportunity and see how to make it more profitable by maybe bringing in the right partner, or, you know, pushing it over here, or getting this type of price reduction. So I just look at opportunity now and try to make deals out of it. So don't be too close-minded, but don't be too spread, because there's a balance. Because if you're too spread, you got too much, you're never going to really make it. If you're too close-minded at the beginning, you're going to miss on a lot of opportunities. So you got to find kind of somewhere in between. And I think that in between for me is like, I wish I would have known what wholesaling was, because there's probably a lot of landlords that wanted rental properties that I could have wholesaled to them that I wasn't even looking at. And I could have made a lot more money that way. So it's like, just open it up a little bit, and then you'll find opportunity. If I had a chance to go back, what would I have done differently? Listen, I'm blessed to be where I'm at. You know, I don't regret anything, but, you know, a couple of things that come to mind is like, you know, instead of flipping and selling, you know, I don't even know, 200 houses, whatever the number is, you know, if I'd have kept a third of those or a half of those, you know, my portfolio would be double the size it is now. Cash flow would be tremendous. Equity would be tremendous, because those properties were worth 70, now they're worth 220. So one, I wish I would have kept a little bit more, and two, I wish I would have gone into bigger deals earlier.
Wish what?
Gone into bigger deals earlier. So like, again, I was scared. There's a property on East Main Street. It was 8,000 square feet. I could have bought it for 100 grand. It was a warehouse, 100 grand. That's a $900,000 building today, and I passed on it because I didn't know. Like I looked at a 8,000 square foot warehouse, and my thought was like, all right, how many office spaces can I chop this into? Swear to God. And I was like, I can put a hallway here and make an office there and shared office space, and have somebody come in and rent the office space. All I had to do was buy the building and put it for lease for one tenant for 8,000 square feet. Problem solved. But like, I didn't know any better, right? So I wish I would have been open to bigger deals.
When would you start getting into like more flips after like having done like a ton of wholesale deals, do you think? I know that's kind of a broad question.
No, I think it's very simple. Sooner than later. Like I ran a wholesale operation for a few years in my business, but like I was the end buyer. I bought 90% of the deals. So like the best rentals, I bought. The best flips, the most profitable flips, I bought. The crappy stuff that I didn't want anything to do with, that was like, you know, really hard renovation and not as much profit, I wholesaled those ones. So like if you already have the deal flow, that's tremendous. Now go raise money, and instead of making $10,000, $20,000 on a wholesale, you can make $40,000, $50,000 flipping a house. But I would not get into like crazy over the top rehabs that don't have a lot of profitability. Like I would keep the wholesale, but like the deals were, you know, $30,000, $40,000 rehab, 50K profit. Instead of wholesaling that for 20K, I would take those down, flip them, and make the money. And as you continue to grow, you know the Burr method. You've obviously heard that before. Think about owning some properties, because I'm sure you just got smacked with the tax bill if you're doing deals. It's not fun to pay. The first 6-figure tax bill I had to pay, like it hurt my soul, and I promised I would never do it again. So if you own real estate, you can offset your tax liability, but still have all the money in your pocket. So you show a loss on paper, but you have all the money, you have profit in your pocket. Loss on paper, you don't pay any money in taxes. So I would look at that, because now you're playing a different game, tax liability, own the rental properties as well. Well, I want to leave some time to hang out and talk. Appreciate everybody coming today. Sincerely, you know, it's dark, it's late, middle of nowhere. Greatly appreciate you guys taking the time. It was a pleasure to meet you all. I'm going to hang out for a little bit, ask some questions. Like, people are here to network. You know, you're welcome to stay. I'll be here. You know, connect with people, and you know, follow me on social. Shoot me a DM. We'd love to connect with you guys deeper, and let me know any way I can help. Last thing, if you have a deal, send me it. Let's make some money together. That's my only ask. But appreciate you all, and we'll be here hanging out, chopping it up. So thank you guys. That's a wrap. Hopefully you got value out of this. Putting this entire deal together using all other people's money and making over multiple 7 figures once it's all said and done. I've done this on single families, I've done this on multifamilies, and I'm now doing this on commercial complexes as well. So if you want to learn how to do this too, from single families to multifamilies to commercial properties and all across the board, hit the link below, book a call with my team so we can map out a game plan on for you how to scale your rental portfolio.